Good morning, good afternoon and good evening to everybody watching this video on Twitter. My name is Mr Dowling and I am the Primary 1-2 teacher at the Community School of Auchterarder in Perth and Kinross. Now, today's a bit of a strange day because I'm not actually at the Community School of Auchterarder. I'm actually working at the brand new Tulloch Primary School in Perth because outside the weather is pretty horrendous. The skies turn black, the snow is falling and it's very, very cold. I've even brought my hat along, just in case it gets too chilly for me to sit here and tell this story. Now, today is a very special day because it's World Book Day and it's one of my favourite days of the year. And I had a whole day planned for storytelling, listening to stories, speaking about our favourite books, but because I can't be there in person with my own class, I thought I'd share the story with you, or share a story with you via Twitter. Now, unfortunately, all my storybooks are in my classroom. And this morning I was in a bit of a panic because I was like, what am I going to read? What can I do? I really want to do this video, but I've got no books to read to you from. And then Mrs Dowling said, I've got a really good book that would be absolutely brilliant for today. I'll just go and get it. So she was in the cupboard, she was raking through all of her things and all her books, and she pulled out this story for us to read today, and it's very suitable given the current weather conditions. So, just before we get started, I just wanted to say welcome to Mr Dowling's Jackanory. This is just a bit of fun because it is World Book Day and we can't all be together to share our favourite stories, so I hope that this is a good alternative. We are using 3 hashtags today. The first hashtag is, of course, World Book Day. The second hashtag is Beast from the East, because we're not going to let the weather spoil our fun. And our third hashtag is live storytelling. Now, the intention was for this to be live, but unfortunately the Wi-Fi and the 3G, 4G isn't very good here, so it's pre-recorded, but I hope you still enjoy it. Now, the story that we have been given today by Mrs Dowling is called One Snowy Night by Nick Butterworth. Now, this is one of her absolute favourites. It's not one that I've actually read before, and if you haven't read it as well, hopefully we can all enjoy it together. So, are we sitting comfortably? Are we? Get those bums all cozied up on the floor. Okay, then I will begin. One Snowy Night by Nick Butterworth. It's cold in the park in winter, but Percy the park keeper doesn't mind. He puts on his warm coat and his big scarf and wears 2 pairs of woolly socks inside his Wellington boots. Percy likes to be outside in the fresh air. And there's Percy there. In the middle of the park there is a little hut. This is where Percy lives. When it gets too cold to be outside, Percy goes into his hut where he is cosy and warm. The animals who live in the park all know Percy's hut. Every day he shares his lunch with them. One winter's night, it was so cold it began to snow, just like it is outside just now. Great big snowflakes fell past the window of Percy's hut, and we can see those in the picture. Brrr, said Percy. I think I'll need an extra blanket tonight. He made himself some hot cocoa and got ready for bed. Suddenly, Percy heard a tapping sound. There was somebody at the door. Now who could that be at this time of night, thought Percy. He went to the door and he looked out. There on the step was a squirrel. It looked very cold and miserable. I can't get to sleep, Percy, said the squirrel. My bed is full of snow. Oh dear, said Percy. Never mind, I've got plenty of room for 2. And there's the poor cold squirrel. The squirrel snuggled down next to Percy and soon began to feel warm. Knock, knock. It was the door again. Now who could that be, thought Percy. Standing outside were two shivering rabbits. It's freezing, said one rabbit. We're frozen, said the other. Oh, you poor thing, said Percy. Come in and warm up. The rabbit squeezed into the bed next to Percy and the squirrel. There wasn't much room. Could you face the other way? Percy asked the squirrel. Your tail is tickling my nose. Knock, knock. Oh dear, said Percy. Now there's someone else at the door. It was a fox. He looked very cold and hungry. Can I come in too? He asked. Percy scratched his head and thought for a minute. Well, if you promise to behave, he said. I promise, said the fox, and he squeezed into the bed next to all the other animals. Bump! Oops! The squirrel fell out. Who did that? Asked the squirrel crossly. Knock, knock, knock. Good gracious, said Percy. It's the door again. This time Percy had quite a surprise. There on the step was a badger, 2 ducks, a hedgehog, and a whole family of mice. Can we see them all? They all wanted a bed for the night. Poor old Percy, and poor old Percy's bed. The animals pushed and shoved and rolled around the bed, but there was just not enough room for them all. Soon the bed covers ended up in a big, tight ball. Then, bump! The covers rolled right off the bed and everybody fell onto the floor. Oh dear, said Percy, this won't do at all. My bed is just too small. Suddenly, one of the mice pricked up his ears. What's that noise? He squeaked. Everyone listened hard. Now, they could all hear it. There was a scratching, scraping sound. It seemed to be coming from underneath them. There's something moving under the floor, whispered Percy. The animals looked frightened and the mice all started to squeak at once. Oh dear, what can it be? It might be a monster with fierce claws and sharp teeth. The noise grew louder and louder and louder. Then one of the floorboards began to move. Look out, it's coming up through the floor. Suddenly, there was a loud creak. Help, cried the animals, and they all ran to hide. I wonder what it could be. But Percy wasn't frightened. He started to chuckle. Then he laughed out loud. A small, dark head was sticking up through the floorboards. This isn't a monster, said Percy. It's a mole. And there's the mole coming out of the floor. I'm sorry to burst in like this, said the mole. I knocked on the door, but nobody heard me. Percy helped the mole up through the hole in the floor, sat him on his hot water bottle to get warm, and put the floorboard back. It's all right, everyone, he called. You can come out now. But nobody moved. Nobody stirred. Nobody wanted to come out. The squirrel was tucked away in the pocket of Percy's dressing gown. The hedgehog was in his coat. The fox, the rabbits, the badger, and the ducks were all safely hidden away. The mice had even squeezed themselves into Percy's slippers. Everyone had found a cosy bed. Well, I never, said Percy. Can you see them all? all hiding away. Percy yawned and snuggled down in his own bed once again. That's better. Now I've got plenty of room, he said, and a little to spare for a mole. And there they are, all tucked up in bed. And that's the end. That was a lovely book. I really enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed it too. Now, before I say goodbye, there is one other thing I would like to share with you all, because World Book Day is one of my favourite days of the year. I absolutely love it. And normally we would all be dressed up for this. And quite often at this time of year I will dress up as a character from one of Roald Dahl's books. Now, Roald Dahl is one of my absolute favourite authors of all time. And I've got almost all of his books, and I love sharing his stories and poems with my classes every year. And I usually do that on World Book Day. So today's going to be no different. I'm going to finish off our little Jackanory session, which I'm covering up at the moment, with a story from Roald Dahl. Well, it's not quite a story, it's actually just a little section from one of his books. And I've got this book here. It's called The Roald Dahl Treasury. And in this, it's got loads of little snippets from his books and poems and stories. And I thought it would be quite funny to share one of my favourite little rhymes from Dirty Beasts with you all. And this one is called The Lion. The lion just adores to eat a lot of red and tender meat. And if you ask the lion what is much the tenderest of the lot, he will not say a roast of lamb, or curried beef or devilled ham, or crispy pork or corned beef hash, or sausages or mutton mash. Then could it be a big plump hen? He answers no. Then what is it then? O lion dear, could I not make you happy with a lovely steak? Could I entice you from your lair with a rabbit pie or roasted hare? The lion smiled and shook his head. He came up very close and said, the meat that I'm about to chew is neither steak nor chops. It's you. That's just one of my little favourite rhymes from Roald Dahl. Anyway, that's the end of the Jackanory session with Mr. Dowling. This has just been a little bit of fun for World Book Day. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, nip to your local library, or if you've got it in your cupboard or on your shelves yourselves, have a read again of One Snowy Night by Nick Butterworth. And if you don't have that, feel free to read any book that you wish and share your favourite stories with me via Twitter. Again, my Twitter handle is Mr. Dowling Class, and our hashtags are World Book Day, Beast from the East, and live storytelling. Let me know how you get on. Have a happy World Book Day and stay safe in this really cold and snowy weather. And hopefully I will see you all again tomorrow. Bye.